Hey everyone, welcome back to the pod. Today I'm joined by Maya. So Maya is originally from the UK, moved to Singapore when she was 22, and in those 14 years she built a successful business, found true love, and has two beautiful boys. Welcome to the pod, Maya.
Thank you so much.
Great to have you.
Thank you.
Do you want to do a little quick intro of who you are, where you're from, and yeah, let's take it from there.
Okay, brilliant. So I was born and raised in the UK and I've got a mathematics background. So went to uni, did mathematics, graduated into the recession, which was great, in 2008. So I thought I'd go into investment banking or something like that. Ended up moving to London where I did a telesales job. So it wasn't as glam as I initially thought it would be.
You can't beat telesales then, right? What a great place to start.
100%. Like if you ask me now, I'd definitely put my kids in that kind of job. So I did that for a couple of years. And I got moved over to Singapore. I was offered a position there where there was like a failing team. I was extremely young. And I basically said yes to the opportunity before, the guy had even finished his sentence. So that was my CEO at the time. And yeah, I did really, really well in sales. And it wasn't something I was expecting, but moved over and did really, really well, and then kind of built myself up from there, and climbed the corporate ladder a little bit, and then realized it wasn't really for me, and then started my business with my husband, who I met in Singapore literally within a year of being there.
Wow.
Yeah. So
well, I know that this is a great story, so let's dig into how you and Manoj first met.
Okay, so it's interesting because the dating scene in London, which is where I was before I moved to Singapore, was really great. So
you liked the London?
I did. It might have just been the time that it was back in the day because it was before the apps and everything. So it was around 2007, 2008. It was great. Like you would get approached. I remember in the metro, people writing their numbers on newspapers. It was easy. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because when I moved to Singapore, it was like the complete opposite, where a lot of expat women talk about this actually, where you're not really the type for the majority of the people living in Singapore. So it was quite difficult, and hence why I'm doing the comparison, because I might have thought London was rubbish, but then when I moved to Singapore in terms of dating, I realized that it was really, really bad.
Well, it sounds like, to be fair, you're flexing that you got hit on. And you're like, yeah, I got hit on a lot in London.
Yeah, when I tell this to my friends, they're like, oh, that's so cringe. Like people are writing their number, and I was like, well, I enjoyed the attention, and I was getting a little bit of attention here and there in London, where in Singapore I wasn't getting any. So anyway, I bring this up because I was actually going to move back to London, because it was like a year in, and I just thought, oh my gosh, like I'm not going on any dates or anything, and there's no potential love prospects here. And so I was almost about to go back, and that's when I met Manoj, who's a local Singaporean. Yeah, and it was lovely, and it was literally love at first sight. It was a whirlwind romance. So within like 6 months, he'd actually come to England and proposed to me, around 6 to 9 months, around there. And yeah, 2 kids, and we've been married for about 11 years now.
And these guys are so cute together, like the cutest. It's a beautiful love story. Love it. Amazing. So when you first moved to Singapore, what was like the culture shock? Like, was there a culture shock of like London versus Singapore? What were the adjustments that you sort of had to make?
Oh my gosh, the culture shock was huge. So when I first moved to Singapore, I actually had a team that I had to manage. And these people within my team had actually come from so many different places around the world to work in Singapore. So it is a cultural melting pot. London is as well. It's just that I wasn't really exposed to people from being from Southeast Asia, for example. So when I got there, I remember, just being like sarcastic with the team, like the banter just fell flat on its face. There was, no one really understood the sarcasm in my team. And I remember one of the guys coming in quite late, and I said something like, oh, nice of you to join us, obviously being very sarcastic, and it just didn't hit. So they were like, oh, thank you. And I was like, I think he was late again a few days later, and I said, oh, good afternoon. Typical British banter, but being sarcastic to get the point across. And he was like, it's 9:10, So I was like, oh gosh, okay. I need to adjust my communication style here. So, things like the banter, which is huge in the UK, right? It's like banter's just happening all day long over there, and I had to adjust because that isn't really a thing in Singapore and Asia. And then it was things like the food. So a prime example is that in the UK, if you go to Tesco's or Asda or what have you, the food is packaged really nicely. Like you don't really see that it's an animal, right? So if you go and buy chicken, it's like packaged nicely. But in Singapore at the time, I remember being in the food court and seeing chickens hung like still with their heads on, or ducks and the feet. So it was interesting, it was totally different. The culture shock was huge. The other thing I would say is that Singapore is quite conservative. So what I would say in comparison to the UK is like, if you had an example of some confrontation in the UK, like you would stick up for someone if you saw something happening that wasn't quite right. But in Singapore, it's almost the norm to stay quiet and hold back what you actually think and not really interfere in anyone's business. Wherein I feel like in the UK, the way that we were brought up, it's like if you see something happening that's not quite right, you step in, right? So I think those kind of things were very different.
I don't think I could live in Singapore.
Yeah. I mean, to give you an example, I remember we were in a high-rise building at Manoj's mum and dad's place, and in the middle of the night, I could hear shouting. And the way that the compound was set up was there were loads of blocks, right? And someone was shouting, saying, I'm going to jump. And clearly she'd had an argument with one of her partner. Wow. And I could hear baby crying and stuff. And I started shouting out the window, like, stop it, because I could hear the guy screaming at his wife. And another lady also started shouting from her window. And, I think someone had called the police or whatever, and I got really told off for doing that by my father-in-law the next day, because it's like, you don't interfere, right? Which at the time was like really shocking to me, that you just
sit back and let that happen and not interfere.
It's almost like, yes, like you'd call the police or anything, but you wouldn't like, but it was like a gut instinct reaction where it's like, it's the stop, because I could hear the guy shouting, and whether it sounded really serious, but it's the norm to just sit back. And the other lady shouting was obviously European as well, because you could tell from the accents it was me and the lady shouting through our windows, like stop.
But like on the flip side, the way I would ever think about anything like that, like you'd never forgive yourself if you hadn't have done something, if you could have diffused the situation or saved something bad from happening, like you'd always want to step in. Yeah. I just think it's upbringing also. So my husband being Singaporean, they were raised very differently to how I was raised or you were raised in the UK. So it just meant that I had to adapt. And I don't really believe there's like a right or wrong. I feel like I had to come down a few notches, you know what I mean, and to adjust to the culture that I was now living in. And then equally, I feel like my husband's picked up a little bit more not courage, because he is courageous, but I feel like now, having been with me for so long, like he would step up in certain situations where previously he might not have done. And then it's just upbringing and schooling and things like that. So how did you and Manoj actually meet?
So what happened is that I mentioned previously that I just wasn't the type for the majority of the people in Singapore, right? But British men get a lot of attention. So it was so interesting, and it's something that a lot of the expat women still talk about today, that, British men in Asia are very much in demand. And the expat women are not so much in demand. Well, anyway, so what happened was I went on a networking event, and I met my husband there. So we got on really, really well. We clicked. And it's interesting because we spoke about everything. It was one of those moments where you meet someone and you can talk for 8 hours straight, and it just felt like a few minutes, right? So we spoke about everything under the sun. And I remember even talking to him about adoption, because we've adopted our eldest son, and we spoke about that on the first, I say date, it wasn't really a date, but the first time we met, we spoke about adoption, and he was like, oh, I would love to adopt. And I was saying the same thing. So how interesting is that, right? So we met at this networking event, and then we went for dinner afterwards. And it's interesting, that place is still open. So I was in Singapore a few weeks ago, and I went to that place. It's so nostalgic to us. It's a dumpling place. And he was just so sweet. It was incredible. Like, for example, when all the food arrived, he would put dumplings on my plate, and I was like, oh, like he was such a gentleman. He's just such a nice guy, a family man as well. So he really took care of his mum, and he held a lot of responsibility for his age. Like I was only like 23 and he was a similar age, he was 24. But for his age, the level of maturity was amazing. And that's something that I really admired in him. So yeah, we went on that dumpling date, so to speak. It wasn't really a date, but he was lovely. And then he also paid the bill for everyone afterwards. And that stuck with me because I just thought, oh my gosh, what a nice man. It wasn't much. It was just like a dumpling place, nothing high end. But he just seemed really sweet. And I thought, wow, you're so generous. And then the next day, it was actually funny. He said to me, what are you doing tomorrow? And I said, I'm going to the temple. And he was like, oh, which one? And he's like, why don't we go together? So at this point, I think we'd spoken for like 8 hours, on this evening. And he literally turned up the next day and took me to the temple. So it was so sweet. It was incredible. Yeah, sounds a bit mushy actually.
I love it. Amazing. So then when did you get married? How long was it from that point that then you got married?
So we met in February. It was just like a few weeks before Valentine's Day, around there, Feb time. And then he proposed in December. Yeah, can you imagine? And we spoke about marriage like within 2 or 3 months of knowing each other. People say when you know, you know. It was literally that. And I know it sounds so cheesy.
I think that's the same as for me and Adam. Like, I never wanted to get married. Never wanted to get married. Met Adam and I was like, wow, this guy has broken down my barriers. I might marry this guy. So it's crazy. But I don't think many people sort of will think like that unless it's happened to them.
Yeah, totally agree. Like some people are like, really? You met on the first time you met, you just knew? It's like, yeah.
But I think you're quite a spiritual person, for sure.
100%.
So you believe it like love at first sight and like fate and like things like that. Everything happens for a reason. I think that's very much sort of how you think. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then did you start the business before marriage, before kids? At what stage did you start the business together?
So what happened was that I was working in banking and finance, and my husband was working in sales in an electronics trading company. So that was before we got married, and then we got married and we continued on our separate paths, but in those lines of business. And then it was a few years into it that we started our business. Basically, we started during COVID, by which time we were already married for around 6 years and we had 2 kids. Yep. So it wasn't until a lot later that we actually started the business together.
Okay, nice. So do you want to tell everyone what the business is?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we sell furniture and it's stain and scratch resistant. So it just means that you can spill coffee, wine, etc. And wipe it clean. And it's non-toxic fabric. It's not like a chemical coating that's been put on or sprayed on. It's basically woven into the fabric the technology is. So yeah, that's what we do. So we've got a furniture business and it's not high end, but I would say it's about mid-range. Yeah.
Nice. I feel like you've only just very much glossed over that. I think you need to dig. I feel like you need to dig a little deeper, because I think for me the story of like how you started the business, what the business does, and where you are now, because I think the social element of your business is. So I think that you've definitely got to talk about that.
100%. So, okay, so if we go back to what happened, my husband and I were both extremely ambitious, like in our own ways. My husband always wanted to start his own business, and that's all he spoke about every single day. And for me, I knew from a young age that I wanted to earn a lot of money, make a lot of money. The reason for that, I think, if I look back, is that my family always argued about money. Is that we grew up not like really poor, but making ends meet was difficult in my house. And because there was a lot of fighting over money, I just thought by becoming a millionaire or having enough money in the bank that I would have no problems, right? So that's what I felt, the naive Maya felt this when I was really young. So even when I was working in banking and finance, I was working with a lot of commission. So I would work extremely hard, always hustling to get those comms and get the sales in. And my husband was the same. He was also in a sales job. And then we basically realized that to make it big, you do need to be, for the majority, in a business, right? So I thought, am I going to be that 1% that gets to a CEO level or, you know, in the C-suite? It just wasn't me. I've never been able to navigate the corporate world very well. I think because I'm too quick, I'm too like, I don't have much patience. So in a corporate setting, you know, there's a lot of layers and barriers. And if I felt like something was going to work better, I wanted it like instantly implemented. And I butt heads a lot with management because it just found me too fast. So people would always say to me, "Maya, like, just slow down."
There's hurdles and the powers of above, especially in a corporate, like there's hurdles that you've got to just jump through in order to get the smallest things have done. You know, it's very, very different to when you're your own business owner, entrepreneur, where you can pivot very quickly and fast and just make changes. You can't do that in the corporate world. And especially being a female, I can imagine as well in the corporate world, if you want to work your way up. I don't know what it was like where you were, but I can imagine that being a challenge.
Yeah, 100%. So I just felt like there were so many barriers and the frustration started to kick in. And then also politics, right? So I actually give a lot of credit to people that are able to navigate the corporate world, the ladder, and get up and manage the politics, where I was never good at that. I was too blunt, said what was on my mind, and it just didn't work in my favor. You know what I mean? Like, so I do say to a lot of people that, you know, wow, I love that you've got that skill, because I didn't have that skill, right? So I would butt heads a lot. Anyway, the frustration grew and grew, and then COVID hit. Well, just before COVID hit, my husband said, I really want to start this business. And he was talking about it every single day. And I said, just quit your job and do it. Because it just got to that point where I was annoyed. And I'm like, you're talking about this every day. Just get on with it. What's the worst that could happen? And I was on a good salary. So I said to my husband, okay, just pretend you're doing an MBA, because I felt like his ego at the time was like, okay, Maya's going to cover the mortgage, cover the school fees, etc. And he felt uncomfortable because he was very much a provider, and he loved providing for the family. We were equally providing for the family. It's just that he felt, okay, if the business takes time and I'm not earning anything, he's going to let the family down. And I didn't think that at all. It was just a lot of pressure he'd put on himself. And I said, okay, let's flip this. Pretend you're doing an MBA. And what's the worst that could happen, right? You're going to learn a lot of stuff. We lose the money, but that's what would happen if you were doing an MBA anyway. Like, you pay a lot up front for the course and you learn things, and you don't end up with a business at the end of it, right? So yeah, he quit his job finally. We started the business, and then COVID hit. So the timing was really, really bad, right? So you would think, but actually furniture was one of the few industries that boomed during COVID. So, you know, we were talking about spiritual side earlier. Can you imagine? Yeah. That's crazy, isn't it? So I started working with him a little bit after hours. And what we realized is that the more I assisted, the better we did. So I realized that I was adding a lot of value, and it got to the point where I felt like I was working two jobs, where my day job was just banking and finance, the job that I was doing, and then in the evenings I was helping Manoj, and I got really like burnt out. And it got to the point where my husband one day woke up and he was like, right, I'm just off to the gym, and I was like already on my laptop doing meetings for work. And then I was trying to help him with some other things, and then he came back, and then, you know, he was just like, I felt like he started to get freedom with this time, and which frustrated me because I was stuck on my laptop for like 8 hours, plus 2 small kids, plus helping him as well. And I called one of my best friends who's got a business as well, and I ranted to him, and I was like, this is what's going on. Manoj just got freedom. I've like basically got the short end of the stick here. And he started laughing, and he goes, Maya, quit your job and join him. What's the worst that could happen? And we started laughing, and I wasn't laughing. I was pacing up and down the living room saying, you know, I'm so fed up with this. And he was laughing his head off, and he's like, just start, Maya. What can go wrong? And then when he came home, Manoj, I said, okay, I'm quitting, unless you want me to stop working with you on the side and I just focus on my corporate job. But if you want me to help, I'm quitting and I'm joining you. And then I still remember his face, because he's like, oh my God, I've got to work with Maya. And the work Maya is very different to the Maya I'm married to, right? So I feel like there was a bit of dread in his face, because I still remember his face. He was like a little bit in shock, but he was like, oh my God, is this going to work? And then, yeah, we did it.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. So then how did things change then when you sort of joined the business like full time? Like what are your responsibilities versus like Manoj's? Like which areas of the business do you both sort of individually look after?
Well, the great thing is that we, right from the onset, we divided up our responsibilities. He was very good at operations, logistics, pricing, things like that. I say the boring stuff, the accounts. So all the things that I didn't really want to touch, Manoj did. And then marketing strategy, growth, all of those things were under me, like market penetration, what products we should be putting out there. Everything that was to do with being creative was under me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you have a showroom initially, or is that you started with the showroom?
Yeah. Okay. We started with an absolutely tiny showroom, probably like the same size as this room, which people can't see. So just like 5 by 5 meters or something. Yeah. It was, all it had in there was like 2 bits of furniture and maybe like a bed. Like, it's that ridiculous. Like, looking back, when I look at the pictures of our showroom at the time,
I need to see these photos.
Yeah, you need to see. Yeah. It was absolutely ridiculous. It's so delusional almost. Like, if I showed you those pictures now, you'd say you quit your banking and finance job for that. Like, yeah. And actually, I did get those kind of reactions at the time from ex-colleagues that they were like, why are you quitting? It's just because we believed in ourselves. And I knew that if I carry on in this corporate job, yes, I'll make a certain amount of money, but I'm not going to be financially free. That it's never going to get me there, because I didn't have the skills, right, to climb the corporate ladder. I was a bit of a lone wolf, just getting my sales in. But we knew that that's not what we wanted out of life. So our journey was like, right, let's just try and give it everything we've got and try and make it.
I love that. So do you think that the business would be where it is today if you hadn't have quit?
Absolutely not. Yeah. I think the reason I say that, I know it sounds vain for me to say that, but the thing is, like, my husband and I, we've got skills in different areas. Mm-hmm. So my husband's so good at operations, logistics, and he's also been a great relationship builder. So to give you an example of that, he made 2 phone calls, to 2 people that he previously worked with. They quit their jobs and came and joined him. And I looked at Manoj and said, there's not a single person I can call that would quit their job and come and join me. So there's things in Manoj that I really admire, like his ability to build relationships, and people around him always believed in him as well. And I thought, wow, like I mentioned earlier, I did butt heads with people. I'm not like that now, but at that time I was like very young, very much like, no one's going to help me in life. I have to do it myself. I had trust issues and things like that. So I wasn't really in any areas that required business, like relationship building or anything like that at the time. I am now, but at the time my skills were in creativity and how do I get people emotionally connected to us? And I grew an audience on social media. So this is the part I guess you were trying to get me to get to. So we use humor, we use a lot of like founder-led stories and storytelling to grow our Instagram and social media accounts. And then by default, they purchase furniture from us. So if you were to ask me, I should have said this at the beginning of the podcast, but if you ask me, Maya, what do you do? I do say normally that I run an entertainment business. Wow. Because we entertain our customers every single day, and selling a piece of furniture is it's
just what happens off the back of that.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that. So touching back on the social, like, what are some of the posts that you guys like put out? How often are you posting? What's been your sort of key to getting viral videos? Because you have had viral videos. Yeah.
So, I think comedy just comes naturally to me. So I wanted to lead with comedy. And to give you an example, we put up a video that reached 61 million people organically around the world, and we had people that we hadn't spoken to in years and years reach out to us from all over the world and say, Maya, is that you? Or Manoj, is that you? And people reconnected with us because we had videos that went viral. So 60 million, 18 million organic views, things like that. It came naturally to me. Like, I know how to entertain people. I think looking back, like, it's definitely my upbringing. I had a very difficult upbringing. There was a lot of fighting, a lot of things that shouldn't have really happened in the family environment that we were exposed to from a young age. And so I used comedy as an escape. So I learned to be funny from a young age, and also being bullied in school quite a lot. So I had to be the funny one, things like that. So it just came naturally. And then we thought, okay, let's lead with comedy because it felt organic and authentic to us. So we just started making people laugh. And we didn't know that that would build a custom base. All of this happened organically, by the way. So it wasn't like, right, let's do funny content and that's going to grow a following and that's going to, eventually make them loyal to us. When they need furniture, they'll come and buy from us. Actually, it just happened by chance. We had no idea what we were doing. And the first time we actually did this was a day where we had no one come in the showroom, and my husband was so depressed about it. He was really, really upset. So we went for dessert in Singapore, and we went for a local dessert cafe type thing. And my husband was eating something. It's like basically shaved ice with some, do you know durian, that really smelly fruit?
No.
Okay, so in Singapore, there's this fruit called durian, and it absolutely reeks, okay? It's even banned on public transport. So anyway, he had this durian dessert, but people love it. So once you taste it, it's meant to be the best tasting fruit ever, right?
Is it?
I personally don't like it, but even my kids love it. My helper loves it. Manoj, Singaporeans, for the most part, love this fruit. Well, a lot of people around the world love it. So anyway, he was moping. I still remember his body language. He was literally like sinking into the bowl and eating it. And I whipped my camera out and I said, Manoj, tell us what you're eating. And he's like, oh, I'm having this durian ice kacang, it's called. And we put it up. And Manoj's like, why are you putting that up? And that was the first time we did any like real life content. And he's like, why are you doing that? You will not believe it. You will not believe it. The next day, people had come into the showroom and they were looking around. And then they said to Manoj, how was that ice kacang last night? And that's when the penny dropped, basically. Yeah. And Manoj was like, what? You saw that? And they're like, yeah. So, and then we did more. And it's like, the more we did, the more our furniture sales grew, right? And we just couldn't believe it. We're like, but actually, if you look back, it makes total sense. You're connecting with your audience. You're showing them who you are. You're being authentic. You're showing the good side. You're showing the bad side. People love that. I feel like people now want to know, who is it that I'm buying from, right? Who am I buying from?
People buy from people.
Yeah, 100%. So I still remember that first post that we did. We laugh about that now. Yeah. Yeah.
And like you say, it makes sense now, but at the time it was just something that you were doing. Yeah. And now this is something that you do most days, right? Like content like that, whether it's pranks or just founder stories, how you guys started the business and things like that. So you really sort of getting to know who you guys are. Yeah. And I know you've obviously mentioned to me when we first met that like Manoj mainly gets like recognized. Yeah. He's a pretty big deal in Singapore.
Yeah, absolutely. So whenever Manoj and I are out, and again, we didn't know this. So, when you're in your own bubble and you basically as entrepreneurs, we're at work, picking up the kids, dealing with the kids, and then we go to sleep, right? It's literally our life. Like we don't really have much time beyond that for anything else, right? So we do socialize a little bit here and there, but you know what it's like being an entrepreneur. It just means it's a 24/7 job. That's just the reality of it. And when we do go out, and I remember the first time we got recognized, it was unbelievable. Like we're just walking down the road and someone came running up to us and said, Manoj. He looked around and he goes, it was this guy, and he goes, I love your content. And we were like, what? We just couldn't believe it. And then the more we went out and walked around, we purposely wore our T-shirts. So the Bless Brothers T-shirt, because you see me in it all the time.
All the time.
Even go to
I'm
the
still
gym.
waiting for mine.
So then we thought, okay, let's be strategic. And we had fun with it. So we'd be like going for our evening walk or whatever. And we'd wear the Bless Brothers T-shirt. And we'd be like, let's see if we get recognized today. We got recognized more and more and more. And the interesting thing is, I'm not really on camera as much as Manoj is. He's the main character, but my voice is. So every time I'm talking on socials, it's like, hi guys, like my friends make fun, they're like, hi guys, like the way I say it, they're always making fun of me. I was in a lift and I got in the lift and I said, level 14 please, and the lady turned around and said to me, oh my God, it's Maya from Bless Brothers. So the voice, I get recognized by my voice, not my face, where Manoj gets recognized for his, I remember being in this place called Mustafa, which is this huge tower of shops. It's open 24/7 in Singapore. It's very famous. They sell everything under the sun. It's one of those places. And I was talking to Manoj, and I'm quite loud anyway. Manoj is always telling me to I literally shout when I'm talking, don't I? I get really passionate and excited. And this lady came running over and she's like, Maya, I could hear you from all the way over there. And then Manoj looked at me like mortified. He's like, "You're too loud, Maya. I'm always telling you you're too loud. Can you quiet it down?" But yeah, it's the voice. So you'd be shocked. You'd be absolutely shocked. And it's not like I've got a million followers across platforms. We're on about 150,000 across TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. It's not a huge number, but you'd be shocked at the impact that you're making. Yeah, if you're consistent.
That's amazing. So I guess this is something that we both do, work with our husbands. So how do you feel about working with Manoj? Like, I guess, was it hard at the start compared to what it is now? How have you guys sort of adjusted to working together?
Wow, I feel like we can do a podcast on just this topic itself, and it will last like 3 hours. Okay, so we spoke about this a little bit before, the session started. Would I do it again? And that's what I asked you, right? Like, looking back, would you have worked with Adam, or would you have gone down a different road? For me, I would say I'm a bit confused. Like, parts of me some days are like, I wouldn't. And then other times I'm so grateful for what we've built together. And it's been an incredible journey. And we've had our ups and downs. But where I am today, I'm so grateful for. So I guess I would say yes, I would, but there'd definitely be things I would change, and similar to what you said, right? So for example, like the work Maya is different to the wife Maya. So for example, because I'm so ambitious and I work fast and I want things done quickly, whereas my husband's way more relaxed. So if something can be done today, I want it done today. And it's just how I've always been, because I just feel like time is money. Like, if something can be done, why are we not doing it today? And that's why I also butted heads with people in the corporate world, because when I saw things not working out, I just wanted them fixed. Like, come on, guys, let's just get it done, right, and move on. So I've had to adjust and be more collaborative, and we touched on that a little bit earlier, right? That I have changed a lot. Manoj has helped me change, because I feel like we've balanced each other out. But Manoj saw sides of me that he hadn't seen being married to me, right? Because I come home and it's like, you're being the wife, you're being the mother, and I'm not in a place where I'm like, come on, guys, like, this needs to be done. Like, what's going on? So he didn't see that, not aggressive side, but the more assertive side to me, because I never had to be assertive in our marriage for anything. Like, we worked so well together, and there was never anything that we totally disagreed on. We're quite similar. We're set up with the same type of morals and everything. So he saw parts of me that like threw him off a little bit. And I think looking back, that's the bit that worries me or concerned me, because you know how it is, right? You want your husband to love you, and you don't want them to be like, oh, I don't like that part of you. Well, I've never seen that part of you before. And it frustrated him. And then him being more relaxed and laid back frustrated me too. Right? So we are very successful together, and we balanced each other out, but it was a skill. It was something that didn't happen overnight. And, we've been running this business for about 6 years now. And now we're at a place where we've balanced each other out, and I know when to hold back. And I think, right, Manoj is already stressed with something. I don't need to put this on top of what he's already going through. So I hold back now. And he knows that, okay, this is important to Maya. So let's speed up on this and get it done. Right? So we've adjusted, like calibrated, but it's been hard. So the success came at a price, right? And it's like, well, what's the price that you paid? And I think it's been showing him sides of me that maybe are not so attractive. Yeah.
Interesting. What about like work-life balance? Like how have you found that? Because I think that that's probably one of the main things that, I guess, not so much me, but I think that Adam really struggled with. Better now, but I would say it's still probably not where I would want it to be.
Yeah, there's no work-life balance. What's work-life balance? It's just, there isn't any. Oh my God, Manoj and I could talk about work all day long. We used to go on like regular date nights. We need to get back into it. It's been a couple of months where they've not really been happening, but we did have that rule, like every Friday we're doing a date night for us. And it's interesting, we would always say we're not going to talk about work, and we'd agree at the beginning. So 15, 20 minutes into the date, we're talking about work, and you don't even realize it's just coming up, and then we have to snap out of it, and it's like, you started it, Manoj said, no, you start talking about it first, right? So because we're so passionate, and it's the one thing that we've got in common that's taking up almost our entire world, right?
Like, what is there? Like, what else is there to talk about when you work together?
Yeah.
Like, like you're not going and doing your own thing, because that your own thing is what you're both doing.
Yeah.
So it's hard to not talk about it, right? But I think like for me, I think because me and Adam, like, well, maybe I'll just say the whole backstory, because I don't actually think that, like, maybe the viewers know this, but so me and Adam actually knew each other at school when we were like 9. We were actually like boyfriend and girlfriend when we were 9. Then Adam got a scholarship to go to a private school, Repton, so then he went off to that school. And then I would say maybe when we were, how old? 20? Maybe I was 20. I was working in a telesales role in a call centre. And then Adam came in for an interview, and I was like to my friend, like, oh my God, I kissed that guy when I was like 9. And she was like, no way. Anyway, he gets the job. We end up sitting next to each other.
Oh my God.
And as I said, like, because my mum and dad are divorced, I never ever wanted to get married. I was like, no, all men are absolute beep.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I was. I just had my guard up so high. And he was talking to me. I was like, wow, like, and he's a year younger than me. So I was like, oh my God, he's like, so I used to call him the wise old owl, because he's very old school, good morals, good values, the way he was like very respectful. And I was like a true gentleman. I was like, wow, like, you don't find many, the same with you and Manoj, right? Like, you don't find men like that nowadays. Like, it's very, very rare. So yeah, we went on some dates, and then, like you say, like, we just spoke for hours, and the time would just go like that. So my point is, like, we worked together in that environment, and then we worked together in another job, and then Adam was like, I want to start my own business. And I was pregnant at the time with Riley, just found out I was pregnant. I was like, well, you've got a few months to make it work. If not, like, I'm going to be on maternity leave. Like, you're going to have to bring the money in. And then I guess we kind of worked together, but my main responsibility was like looking after Riley at the time. I would do like the odd bits because I still wanted to be doing something and working, and I didn't, I wanted to be there for Riley. I was like, well, we've got our own business. Like, I want to help support here rather than going back into finding another job or going back to where I was previously. And yeah, I would say that was it. But I think that for me, because I was like mainly being mum and working a little bit, I kind of felt that Adam was constantly at work. Like, you've obviously got a nanny.
Yes.
City, who is absolutely amazing. Shout out to City. My boys love City. It's unbelievable.
She's a legend.
She is a legend. So for me, I felt like Adam was not present a lot of the time. And I think that's what I struggle with, like that balance of it. Like, I'll openly say, like, in my head, like, at the time, I was like, I felt like he preferred to be at work than what he did at home, and that was like heartbreaking. I had to have that conversation, like, and he was like I'm just trying to provide. In his head, like, he was just trying to provide. And I was like, well, I had to take a step back and go, like, he's doing this for us. Like, he obviously, if I think about it, he obviously wants to be at home with us, but like, I guess sometimes you don't think like that until it's like voiced to you. And then we had Reggie, and then I became like more involved in the business, and then loads more involved in the business than when they were both either at school or nursery. And then I struggled with sometimes the way that Adam would talk to me at work. And I'm like, I struggled still now to the day, like, I struggle to separate the two of Adam talking to, and I'm like, you're my husband, like, don't talk to me like that. But in his head, it's like, it's work, it's not personal. But I don't know, I still really struggle with that, because I still think that whether I'm a work colleague, you still wouldn't talk to me with lack of respect like that. So don't talk to me like that. So I think that for me is like the biggest thing. And I think that we've probably now realised that we probably don't work well together. And he needs to respect the fact that I don't like being spoken to, like, because he's exactly like you. He wants it done like that. Or why is it not? Well, because it can't be done that quickly. Like, so I guess I'm more like Manoj and you're more like Adam. Like, he wants it done instantly. Why can't it be done? He's very direct. He's very blunt. He just wants it done. No, he doesn't want to know all the fluff around it as to why it can't be done. He just wants to know, well, when's it going to be done? It's the same, right?
Oh my God. It's exactly the same.
Yeah. And I guess I'm more sort of operations, project management, making sure it gets done, keeping to deadlines. I'm more on it from that point of view.
And a process, you're like, there's a process.
Yeah, there's a process that needs to be
follow
followed.
it.
But he's not like that. He just wants to get to the finish line.
Yeah.
And he's more sales, strategy, like overall business goals, KPIs, everything like that. So it's very, very similar. So, you know, when you're talking, I can definitely, it all relates for sure. Yeah. So that's our story. Which I think is interesting because it is really quite
very
similar.
It's very similar. Yeah. It's like we've been successful with our partners and we've built a great life for ourselves. We're so grateful for that. It's just that it has come at a price. It's come at a huge price.
For sure. But when you asked me earlier, like, would I change it? No, definitely. I definitely wouldn't change it because I think it's forced us to be better at communication. You have to communicate well, right? In a marriage anyway, let alone when you are also working in a business with that person. Like, communication is key. So I wouldn't change it, no, because it's got us to the hard work. It got us a nice life in the UK, and then it's also then got us to Dubai, which is, you know, our goal and where we wanted to be, and I'm like forever grateful for that. But now if I can make the changes to be doing other stuff that's more for me, because I feel like I kind of got thrown into the business. It was what Adam wanted to do, not really what I wanted to do.
Right.
Whereas I guess you had that choice, right?
Yes,
It's like you were like, no, I want to build this with you. And me and Adam work really, really well together from a team perspective. But I think, I wouldn't change it, but I definitely think that we could work better together. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
I would say, right, do you have this with Adam where it's like, okay, let's just say you've got an issue with Adam, right? And you need to address it with him. Because you're husband and wife, you can be more blunt, like the way, so I'll give you an example. Like if, let's just say that I've made some silly mistake and I was a colleague of Manoj's, he would be like, right, you know what, Maya, you know, we saw you've done this and it's not quite worked out. And you know, there's a way to deliver criticism. Yeah. But when you're husband and wife, it's like, are you dumb? Like, what are you doing? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, what made you think that was a good idea? Like, because we're so open and we've known each other for so long that you can say things like that to your spouse, but you could never say that to a colleague.
No. Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't say it to a colleague.
Like, you'd be like,
what were you thinking?
Yeah. You've effed up. Like, you've really dropped the ball. Yeah. And then you like the way that he says it, like, oh my God, I've disappointed him. Like, I've done and I'm like, I'm only human. Yeah. Like, these mistakes happen.
The amount of times I've said that. I'm not a robot.
You're not working with AI now, babe.
Oh my God, it's so true. Yeah. We have to remember that, you know, we do have to remember that you're talking to a human with feelings, right? And you would never deliver a message like that to a colleague in this way. So then what gives us the right to deliver it to our spouse? And it's because of that comfort level that we have where you feel that you can be direct. In some cases, great, but it's going to hurt one of your feelings at some point, right?
The business that you've got now in Singapore, how large is the premises now?
So we've got a 3-story gallery and it started off so small. We actually, within the 6 years that we've been in operation, changed places 4 times.
Wow.
Yeah, it just grew and grew and grew. So we have a lot of repeat customers that actually say to us, we remember when you had that small little place and they followed us, and it's got to the point where they're getting more things from us now. And they just can't believe the journey that we've been on, and they're following us throughout it, which is really nice.
Yeah. Loyal.
Very loyal. Very loyal.
Yeah. Okay. So then what was like the moment where you were like, was it, I want to move to Dubai, or was it, I think we should expand the business into Dubai? What was the, like, why did you do that?
So I guess looking back, what happened is that our revenue became quite stable in the sense that it was quite predictable. So I could predict the revenue on a weekend, on a month. It was very, very good. But it just felt like for our growth, and because we're so ambitious, right? And I think it was me pushing it more than Manoj was, but Manoj was quite content. And I said to him, what's next? What should we do next? And it's my personality where it's not that I got bored, but I want the next challenge. And it's just how I've always been, right? And then I kind of like push Manoj along or pull him along with me. So we said, okay, there's a few things that we can do. One is that we add more products and we expand and we go this way, or we go into other locations and we expand that way. And it got to a point where I was really missing England quite a lot. I feel like as you get older, and it had been like 14 years of me being in Singapore, I just felt like I wanted to be back in England. Like I really missed England so much. So we had that discussion, like, okay, are we going to expand into England? Yeah. And my husband started looking into it and he's like, are you kidding me? Like the taxes, the cost of doing business, like he's like, there's going to be no bit, like it's just going to be so difficult, and any money that you make is going to be taken by the taxman. So he's like, absolutely no way. So I was like, okay, so what do we do now? And then he said, what about Dubai? My husband loves Dubai. He was always very connected to Dubai through the work he was doing with import-export business that we've got, which is his baby on the side. And he just said, I would love to work in Dubai because it means I'm closer to a lot of my customers in Africa, etc., where we do a lot of our wholesale business. So I was like, okay. And then initially I thought that I like Dubai. I do love coming there for like a few days, a bit of shopping, you know, that kind of thing. But am I going to be able to live there? Because I always thought Dubai was like quite pretentious. And I love nature. I love like the rawness of places. Yeah, I love greenery. And even in England, people talk about the weather being awful. But I love being in the countryside. And even if there is a bit of drizzle, I just really love the outdoors. So
you've been in Singapore for too long.
So I'll try to sell it to Manoj. I know. He's like, no, it's not happening.
I also can't imagine your kids living in the UK either.
So it was no, darling, we're not moving to the UK. And he said, why would you move to the UK when everyone from the UK is moving to Dubai? You know, it feels that way because there is a lot of people coming over. So I said, okay, let's do it. And it just meant that I'm 7 hours from England and I'm 7 hours from Singapore where Manoj's family are, right? So it meant that we're in the middle, and then we're still getting that growth. We're still trying like a new project. So yeah, that's what we did. And I can't tell you, we made the decision so quickly, but we did no preparation at all. We just jumped in thinking that it was going to be really easy, and it wasn't. It was not easy at all. But we're just that kind of couple where we're like, we make a plan, all right, okay, let's do it. You know, and then you get other people that will do like a year's worth of research. That's just not who we are, right? We were like, let's go, let's give it a go. If it doesn't work, we'll move back to Singapore. What's the worst that could happen?
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were brave. You were very brave. Yeah.
But it's just how we live our life. Like more me than Manoj. Manoj is more conservative, more laid back, risk averse, where I like to take risks, but calculated risk, right? So for me, it's like, okay, it's going to cost us X amount. Are you willing to lose that amount of money? Yes or no? Yeah. It's like, okay, we try it for a year. If it doesn't work at all, this is what we've lost. Can we accept that as a family?
I think you are the female version of Adam.
I think, you know what, the more time I spend with Adam, I feel like I am.
You really are. Like that's the way that he'd think. It's like, well, would I put a bet on it? Like, am I willing to risk because the upside could be like, that's kind of like the way that he thinks. But we still did the research as well, because I think for us, I mean, it was obviously completely different reasons. And I guess.
What were your reasons?
Well, one, we had the business so we could work from anywhere, one. Two, I've always wanted to live in a foreign, like in the warm weather, like a hot country. That's always been my goal. And then also, because Adam went to Repton, so he was, I guess his education was a lot different to mine. He was with kids from all over the world, different nationalities, different cultures. So he said that was really good for him. And it was, you know, there's a lot of learnings from that in itself, being with different people from different cultures. And that's not what I had, you know, I don't think that the majority of the people in my school were white. Yeah. There was very, very few nationalities. I mean, I guess there was probably, yeah, I can't even, probably on one hand I could count from wow. So, but again, so he was exposed to all of that, whereas I wasn't. He's very, very intelligent. I blag it. I learn as you go, whereas he's very intelligent, like super intelligent. So I think for him, he wanted the boys to have an education similar to what he had. And for me, sending them to private school in the UK was just not an option. So expensive. So when we came to Dubai, we completely fell in love with it. And I was like, oh my God, I could see myself living here. Yeah. And then he was like, really? I was like, yeah. I was like, can we move to Dubai? So, but ours was like, 3 years later that we made that. Yeah. So like from the first time that we came, then we were like, is it just because you're staying in the Atlantis and you're getting all that service? But for me, like the safety and I don't know, like I think it scared me for the boys as they get older that I wouldn't want them going out on their own in case, you know, people carrying knives, getting into fights and stuff like that. To me, that's like, I guess that wasn't something that you were exposed to all the time, because Singapore's quite safe, right?
Very, very, very.
So for you, that was never a sort of consideration. I mean, was it a consideration though, from moving from Singapore to Dubai, knowing that you were moving from one safe country to another, or did you not? Because for me, it's crazy for you to have ever thought, I'm going to move from Singapore, a safe country, to what the UK is now, having 2 young kids. Like, that blows my mind.
Okay, yeah, I know what you mean. The thing is, right, in the UK, I feel like you're grown up to be street smart and you've got your wits about you, right? And there's something about growing up in an environment where things are happening and there are people that are either trying to rob you or it sounds ridiculous when I'm saying it, but like for example, if someone came and challenged us, I feel like we know how to handle that situation, don't we? Because of the way that we were raised in the UK. It was never really safe to begin with. I mean, where we're from, it's not, right? Where in Singapore, it's so safe. It's almost like if my kids were approached, they wouldn't know what to do. So in a way, the Singapore setup means that you're in a very safe place, but you're never exposed to anything that will make you very street smart. Okay. Where I believe that me growing up in that kind of environment in the UK, where you had to be street smart.
That will always stick with you.
Yes, absolutely, right? And it's like you've got instinct and you know. And so, for example, right, when we went to the UK recently, went to stay with my grandma, and my eldest son Kabir saw that in my grandma's room there was a hockey stick, and then he goes, "What's the hockey stick there for?" And then my grandma goes, "It's to protect myself if anyone comes in." At the fact, my boy just couldn't believe it. His face dropped. My grandma's 87 years old. She's been robbed in the UK of her pension money. She went and withdrew her pension and on the way home got robbed. Nothing got done about it. No one was found. And the worst part about it is that for 6 months she didn't leave her house because it played on her mind so much that I'm such an independent woman and she's such a strong woman and nothing like that had ever happened to her whole life. And then it threw her back. It made her feel weak. And that was devastating. We had to keep saying to her, it doesn't matter it doesn't matter about the money. And it was like she felt stupid and she felt fooled, right? So my kids have no idea that people live in an environment like that because they were born and raised in Singapore, right? And we're not much better now. We've moved to another safe place in Dubai. I would say it's different to Singapore though. Like you do need to be way more street smart in Dubai compared to Singapore, although they are both very safe places to live. So yeah, I don't think it's all doom and gloom being raised in the UK. I think the skill set that you get is very good, and it makes you street smart, and that's something you need. I worry about that for my kids in Dubai actually, that they're not street smart enough.
Yeah, but I do think you can teach that. Yeah. And I think that's probably like your job as a parent to teach that. Yeah, they might not be seeing it and being exposed to it, but you also wouldn't want your kid being exposed to, I've got some sweets, come and follow me into the back of the van. Do you know what I mean? Like you can talk about that happening, and I think that's, that's why, like, obviously Kabir and Dhruv have never heard of a kidnapper van, and you know what Reggie's like, oh, that looks like a kidnapper van. Not that Reggie's ever seen a kidnapper van, but
it's possible.
Yeah. Whereas I guess Kabir and Dhruv, what's a kidnapper van? I guess that's the difference. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. It's like you want a balance. And obviously I'm not saying I want to take my kids and put them in an environment where they could be stabbed at school and they have to be street smart. No, but it's like there needs to be something that grounds them and makes them realize that some places can be dangerous and you need to take precautions, right? So it's like in Singapore, I can carry my bag and have it not zipped, and no one really zipped their bags. But then when I'd be back in England, I'd have to be constantly reminded, like, your bag's open.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, and even though I was born and raised in the UK, you forget that those things, or going around town and you can smell drugs, you can smell the marijuana, or you can see kids with their parents and you know they're on something, it's just not right. And then I know, but my kids haven't got a clue. They're just walking around, they don't know what that smell is, they don't know any of that. So it's trying to find the balance. It's difficult as a parent.
It's a really interesting perspective because you're from the UK, but your kids were born in Singapore. It's very, very, very different. It's interesting.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I've been robbed twice in London. I've been followed. And, when I tell these stories to my husband, he's like, what? Because he's not had anything like that in Singapore, so Yeah.
Almost
Very different.
almost
upbringing.
he's been brought up in a bubble as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So now you're in Dubai. What's it been like sort of setting up the business in Dubai versus what it was like in Singapore? Because I presume there are a lot of differences.
Huge amount of differences. So if you talk about the similarities to begin with, right, the fact that the ease of doing business in both places in terms of setting it up, the taxes are low. It's a great environment for entrepreneurs to come into, right, and set up a business relatively easy. The thing that I would say is that because we had to do renovation at a place, and the hurdles that we had with that were crazy. Like, we were just not used to things not being delivered on time, for example. There's a huge culture shock as well. Like, for example, in Singapore, if you had contractors come in, they would say, right, this is going to take X amount of time. And there might be a little bit of delay here and there, but not too much, right? Where in Dubai, we had contractors come in, it's going to take, X amount of weeks or months, and then 6 months later, it's still not done, So there were frustrations and there were things happening like,
I remember the story, actually.
You remember me having literally a mental breakdown. Like, it was so difficult. And it's because Manoj and I have never had to deal with processes not being in place and deal with people that don't necessarily do what they say they're going to do. And it's just cultural differences, right? I remember pulling up at the place, at our showroom, and we pulled up and the workers were asleep on the ground, and the minute they saw us pull up, they literally grabbed the nearest paintbrush they could, bless them, with they're just waking up, and someone must have shouted, they're here and they started painting. It was, and we saw it happen in front of our eyes. And my husband and I guess me being in Singapore for so long, I'm not as confrontational as I used to be being back in England, and my husband's non-confrontational, like he still is that way. So we didn't even say anything to them. Can you imagine? Like, we just pretended that we didn't see it.
I mean, that blew, when you told me, like, that absolutely blew my mind that you didn't say anything.
Yeah, we didn't say anything. And don't forget, the tap was on, the rent was due every month. We were like 6 months behind schedule, and we didn't say anything. Probably for anyone listening, they're like, why didn't you say anything? I can't explain it. It's like, we're not used to being like, guys, what are you doing? Like, why were, we're just not like that, right? And
it's interesting how much you've, from what you said, like how much you've changed, definitely blows my mind.
It's crazy. And then we started speaking to neighbours and getting advice, and they were like, right, if you don't shout at people, things don't get done. And it's just not who we are. We don't want to be like that. And I used to fight with Manoj and be like, Manoj, you're the guy. You've got to say something. And because I didn't want to be the one, I don't want to shout. And I'm not saying that you have to shout to get things done. It's just that different environments require more micromanagement, as opposed to, you think people are just going to get on with it. Not really. I think looking back, you just have to assess the situation and be like, right, yes, I do need to be on top of things here. I do need to be here for the majority of the day and supervise, because it's not going to happen.
I mean, it's crazy, really, though, when it's a shell, right? Like, why would you want to be there? Just making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. And one of our neighbours said, well, I'm up at the hotel across the road, and I'm sleeping there as opposed to going home, just so I can be up early and supervise what's happening and make sure that things are on time. And then it was only when we started having these conversations that we're like, right, we need to change our approach, because it's not like you just have autonomy and it's just not going to get done. You do need to be on top of things. So loads of things like that we've learned, and it was really hard, but yeah, we've adjusted, and we didn't have to do that in Singapore, but these are things that we realized that we had to do here a lot more.
That's amazing. And it looks great now. It's finished. It looks absolutely stunning. So if you're in Dubai, you've definitely got to go and check it out for sure. And what are the differences between like being a female founder in Dubai versus Singapore? Because it's I know you do lots of sort of networking events.
Do you know what? I would say that Dubai has such a growth mindset. Like, when we go to networking events or, meet people that are starting their own businesses, or even in the corporate world, everyone is hustling. Everyone's trying to make it. And it's so beautiful to see. And that kind of energy is so contagious that, I could speak to a few female entrepreneurs, and you just feel buzzing after the conversation. And it's happening every day almost. There's always something to go to. There's always people to meet, and they want to meet people. Where I feel like in Singapore, that energy energy wasn't really there. Where here, there's so many nationalities, everyone's coming to Dubai, everyone wants to make it, and it's so contagious. But at the same time, it can be quite overwhelming, you know. So it's just like you have to kind of see what your balance is and what it is that you want to do. Because I had burnout. I was told at the beginning that if I don't network, my business is going to fail. So I was networking like crazy, and I'm sure you remember that. But then I realized that actually I can tone it down, and it's not necessarily the case. And I need to maintain a balance because I've still got 2 kids at home, right? And I wish I could do networking all day long, but I just can't. So, and there's work to be done as well. You got your day job, right, of actually running the business too. So yeah, that's what I would say. The energy is phenomenal. Everyone's here, everyone's trying to make it. So yeah, I would say like the other difference would be that, like, for example, if I'm in a meeting, I've had a few meetings where the people on the other side have been addressing my husband as opposed to me, which has annoyed me a little bit. But again, it's the adjustment you have to make, and rather than getting upset about it, you just have to realize that it is going to be the case sometimes. And does it really matter? Not really, you know. And yeah, that's what I would say. Like, adjust. Like, I'm here now, I've got to adjust to Dubai rather than people adjusting to me. So when you go to any country, you have to adapt to their way of doing things, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. I guess let's start to try and wrap this up because I'm aware of the time.
Yeah.
But what advice would you give to anyone that is sort of looking to move to Dubai? I know you moved from Singapore, so it's slightly different, but you're obviously originally from the UK.
Yeah.
Would you recommend people moving to Dubai? And what, if so, why? And what would be the biggest piece of advice for anyone thinking about moving?
So what I would say is that if you're a family, you should definitely secure a job before you come out here, like at least one of you. So that's what's happened with a lot of my friends based here that have come from the UK, and they came around a year ago, so similar to me, where one of them had a job, which meant that the whole family could move over, because the cost of living in Dubai can be very high, right? So if you want to put your kids into good schools and you've got more than one kid, you can imagine how the bills start to pile up, right? And getting a job in Dubai is not as easy as perhaps people think. I've got friends that it's been a year and they've still not been able to secure a job, but they've been lucky in the sense that their husbands have secured a great job, which pays for their lifestyle and everything. But there's a lot of people that are frustrated and they can't find a job. So what I would say is, one of you get a job. Don't just come over and think that you're going to get a job in a month or 2 of applying. It's not the case at all. Yeah, like even like the pace of doing things here in Dubai is a lot slower. So the interview process, I know some people have took a year to get a job, and it's just the interview process has been so long. Yeah. So that's one thing I would say. But other than that, it's an absolutely fantastic place. Like, if you're an entrepreneur, definitely set up a business in Dubai, go for it. You're going to be so motivated with the growth culture here. Everyone's hustling. So just that in itself, the energy is so contagious. So setting up a business would be brilliant. A lot of people are flocking here, so there's a lot of opportunity for business owners, right? If you're single, maybe you could come out without a job, you know, and try to find a job whilst you're here. But if you're a family, definitely get things in order first.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Right.
And then let's just reflect, like, what is the thing, let's get deep. What is the thing that, looking back on, like, what you've done, what's the thing that you're, like, most proud of?
Wow. Do you know, women, we don't really I feel like we don't do this enough. Like, we don't look back and think, wow, I'm so proud of what I've done here. Right? Don't you think?
I think it's probably because we're always looking forward as to what we can do next, and not really thinking about, like, what we've done and what we're proud of.
I think with the channel that we've built, I'm really proud when people message me and they say things like, your content's kept me going. And when I was in Singapore recently, someone called the showroom because they knew that I was going to be in Singapore, because I was putting it up on my stories. And this lady called and said, Maya, I just want to let you know that I've got a kid with autism and it's been really difficult for me. And when I watch your content, it really helps me get through the day. And we get messages like that on a weekly basis. And the fact that she called up and told me that, I just couldn't believe it. And I think beyond making money, beyond, you know, building a fabulous business, you know, multiple locations and things like that, Am I proud? Yes, I'm proud of it. Of course I am. But those moments mean way more to me. Or, you know, I get a message and say, I was just watching a video on the train and I had to get off the train and get onto the next carriage because I couldn't stop laughing. Maya, people thought I was crazy. I get messages like that all the time. But it's those ones where it's like you've made a difference in someone's life. And when that call happened, I put the phone down afterwards and I called Manoj straight away and said, we've got to do more content, you know, because there are times where I feel like we're getting complacent because we've got a following now. We don't have to post as much as we used to when we were like, you know, really trying to build up the business. But then when you get messages like that or calls like that, it's like, just keep going. And it motivates me to like keep filming even though we're tired, right? It's not like we've got all the time.
You don't want to be on.
You don't want to
be on camera.
Yeah. You know, you're running a business. There's so many things to do. Your to-do list is endless, and then on top of that, you've got to do content. But that's what makes it worth it.
I love that. I love that. I think that's probably like similar sort of thing for me as well. Like when we get stopped, when people recognize us, and it's like we had it the other day. Like this family stopped us in Nikhil Mall. And you know, we don't get it all the time, but I think we've probably been stopped, I don't know, 20 times maybe since moving. And I'm which is a lot really, if you think about like the number of photos. And it's like, wow, they're like, you know, thank you so much. Like I've watched your content. It's been like so helpful. Like you really helped me doing X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, wow. Like, and the comments that we get, and it's like, really enjoyed your content. What a lovely family. Like your boys are amazing. And it's like that makes me feel proud. And also like, it's kind of like you're helping people make that decision in moving, which is such a big decision about thinking about moving. And if you can, you know, if you can help someone maybe make that move, and, you know, knowing that you're making a difference there, I think it's really, really amazing.
Yeah, I believe you've like influenced people even on like the school that they've picked, the location that they've stayed at, just by watching your videos. So you don't understand the ripple effect, right? Yeah,
like, and when you sit back and think about that blows your mind, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Love it. Last question before we wrap up. What advice would you give anyone that's looking to set something up of their own in Dubai, like set up their own business?
What I would say is the human connection is so important. And that's what's worked for us in our business, and that's what's gotten us a lot of attention. Although we're a new business in Dubai, the fact that we do founder-led content means that people are connecting to us and relating to the information that we're putting out there, whether it's like, you know, the reality type content that we do or the humorous stuff that we do, whatever comes naturally to you, right? I'm not saying go out there and be a comedian and start putting funny videos up if that's not what comes to you, right, organically or authentically. But if you want to spearhead your business, you do have to put yourself out there. And for example, sometimes when I'm scrolling on TikTok, I do see real estate agents, you know, they're putting up regular, consistent content. So then when you do need a real estate agent, you know who to go to, right? So I feel like there's so much competition in Dubai that you need to stand out. And it's like, how are you going to stand out? So plan for that, right? Is it going to be, are you going for a certain niche, or, you know, if you're going for the mass audience, what should your approach be? So plan in that way. I would say, like, make yourself visible, because there's so much competition here and anything can be done at any price, right? So that's something we found in furniture, that there's furniture that can be bought for a few $100s, right, or pounds, and there's furniture that can be bought for 40,000-50,000 pounds. So it's like, where are you going to place yourself? Because Dubai is massive, like there's so many people here. So yeah, make yourself visible and connect with people in an authentic way.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, Maya, it has been amazing to chat. Thank you for coming on the pod.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. Well, thanks for listening, guys. And stay tuned for the next one. And we'll put all Maya's details. So if anyone's got any questions, they can reach out through the Blessed Brothers channel. Yeah, we'll put all the details below. Thanks for watching, guys.